Hello, everyone. This is Steve from A Better Life. This podcast is brought to you by our sponsors, Premium Botanical. They are the makers of Herbal Spectrum, which is a full spectrum hemp-based CBD. They make salves, liquids, and they have a great mixed berry gummy. You can check them out at www.mypbcbd.com. Now our podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to A Better Life, New York. I bring you back to part 2 of our conversation with Wyatt, Joe, and Tracy, and now part 2. And what's interesting, and correct me when I'm wrong, guys, is those cylinders were originally recorded, so everything's realized that there are no microphones, right? Everything's recorded acoustically.
Yeah, they were
Enrico
all recorded
Caruso,
through a megaphone.
yeah, Caruso with his major voice are singing through these megaphones, and the instruments have megaphones. There was one master made, and they only made, for a long time, individual cylinders from the master one at a time. Isn't that correct?
I'm going to go back a little bit further. At the very beginning of the cylinder era, when wax cylinder records were being sold to the public, the company would have a performer come in, and they would line anywhere from 10 to 20 machines in front of that performer, and that performer would record for about 2.5 minutes their piece while all of these machines were recording simultaneously. But then you only get 20 or 25 records. So what does the performer do? When that session's over, they do it again. And some performers would record a dozen or a couple dozen times a day to produce records, and each record was an original. But what they did, not to get too technical, they would put graphite on these wax records, and then they would electroplate them with copper, and you would thus create a mold, and you could pour wax into that mold, and yes, as you said, take one master record, and from that one single record, press or pour thousands of them. Now, on one hand, the performer's not getting paid for 25 recording sessions in a day. They're only getting paid for one. But for the manufacturer that's distributing these records, that's money in the bank. And they started mass producing records. The phonograph just exploded. It was a worldwide phenomenon.
And made these people famous.
Oh, worldwide fame. Absolutely.
Anna Gluck, that's that her name? Anna Gluck? Alma Gluck. She,
what a voice.
Memory. She became like the first famous woman singer.
Yes. And who's the other one? The first big singer. Now,
Ada?
Pardon?
Ada?
Not Ada Jones, actually. It was John McCormack. He was, I think, the first phonograph performer. Oh, I hope this is correct. He was the first one to make $100,000.
Really?
As a performer. And $100,000 back in the teens, early 20s was a lot of money.
It's funny because I bought a whole bunch of records at auction, maybe 300. They're all still in boxes. And the guy that the auction that shipped it, first of all, they must have broke at least 30 or 40 of them.
Yeah, they're just baked clay discs with a little shellac mixed in. They're very brittle.
I know, but they didn't really pack it. They just filled the box. They didn't put anything around it.
Yeah.
And I complained because he charged me a lot of money to ship it. But I bought it real cheap, so who cares? But I just get mad at, I didn't see anything there that would have blew my mind, stuff I probably already had anyway. But there was a lot of that era recording. Matter of fact, at least 101 box. There's probably more than 300. But I haven't gone through them all yet. I went through one box last night. And Joe and I have been using an ultrasonic cleaner to clean the records. I had found one. I started using it. I couldn't believe it. I called him, sent him a picture of it, and he's, what is it? He bought it right away. And we've been going through our collection. I have about 1,078, so I'm still in the middle of it.
It certainly is a lot better than one by one, which Tracy and I started doing back in the day, we only got through about 50 when we gave up.
Yeah.
And the ultrasonic cleaner does 7 to 10 at a time. And so we took 3 weeks and all of our records are now clean.
Yeah. Thank you for that, by the way. Thank you.
I was sick all week, so I cleaned a lot of records, but I have, I don't know, 300 or 400 diamond discs, and I have no idea how much cylinders. I haven't gotten to them yet.
Would you like 300 or 400 more? Oh, so
Don't put the diamond disc in the cleaner.
I'll sit back down now.
I have I have 3 diamond disc players. I don't know what that one is. A C150 maybe. And then I have a Chalet.
For all of you listeners out there that know all of the model designations, yeah, every floor model or table model that was made, not that was made, but they had different furniture designs. So if you're familiar with the Sheraton design or the Chippendale design, and they had different designations for the model. And the Chalet was a tabletop cabinet that was made out of gumwood, and it plays diamond disc records, which we can talk about tonight or some other day.
The Chalet is interesting because it was meant to like bring to a place that it would be loud enough for people to dance in a room.
Yeah, it was a small enough cabinet. It was priced right, and you could put it on a table. It didn't take up floor space, and it didn't weigh a lot, so you could move it from one room to another as needed.
Oh, it weighs a lot.
Oh, when I say a lot, like a floor model could weigh 250 pounds.
Right.
But that one's probably more in line with 70 or 75 pounds, which is light in this.
And then I have the small A100, which is a small floor model that I drove out to. Some lady had it. She called me. She says, I want to get rid of it. It works fine. It had been refinished, but when I took the refinish off, it was... And New Life, the wood, which is like a cream
It's like a cleaner.
It looks unbelievable. It's missing 2 little clover leaves. Actually, what happened was they'd lost a crank and they bought a replacement crank, except it couldn't fit in the hole with the whole plate over it. I don't know what you call those things. Grommet?
Yeah, it's scutcheon. A scutcheon.
Thank you. It couldn't fit with the scutcheon, so they took the scutcheon off.
Yeah.
But I found an original handle and an original scutcheon and replaced it. And now it looks fantastic. And it works well and it plays great. And it's in my office because it isn't as big as everything else. In my office, I have a gramophone W that I bought from Joe with a big nickel-plated horn. I try to have a little cross-section of everything. I have the XX80 Victrola. On top, I have an Edison standard banner with a big red horn. I have the Columbia Gramophone table model, the one I bought from you, right?
Yes.
What is that, a 100 or 150 or something?
It's a tabletop with the oak finish.
And dear listener, this is exactly what collectors like Steve, Joe, and I sound like when we're talking to each other. And we talk in codes. It's a C250 with a double spring motor with the side-mounted crank, and it's in the gold finish in the oak cabinet. And there was an option for mahogany, but that was $10 more, which was a lot of money back in the day. Or did you have an Edison Triumph? Yeah, I got a Triumph. It's a mahogany finish with a triple spring motor. And after a while, you start to sound like us.
Yeah, I've been criticized because I've been criticized on our Facebook page by very famous people, collectors, or at least famous people in the society who have accused me of having more machines than knowledge. And I admit I have more machines than knowledge, but tough.
The knowledge will come in plenty of time. Don't worry about it.
And their attitude needs to change too, because we need to welcome more people into the hobby. Then me too. Even today, I still get negativity in some of these internet groups from people that they take it upon themselves to have to correct me. And I'm not infallible. I make mistakes. I'll say the wrong thing sometimes. And instead of being nasty, it's better to be kind and just say, oh no, that isn't a pinion gear. That is a spur gear. And I'll be like, thank you for helping me. Thank you for correcting me on that. I appreciate your help. What, isn't that better than, oh, you said it was a spur gear. It's a pinion gear. And it's not the first pinion gear. It's the second pinion gear. And it's called a spring barrel. It's not called a spring box or whatever. Canister, a can. Yeah, it's okay. I get it.
That's one thing that got Joe and I really into it is we were lucky enough to meet the right people early that were willing to help and teach us, Wyatt being one of the main ones. And it was without judgment. And it was just, no, let me teach these new people about the hobby and the right terminology and how to work on things and fix things. And without that, we really probably wouldn't be as into it as we are because we were welcomed with open arms. And that's a big thing in any hobby, right? If you want to keep it going, especially something like this that is going out of style or not really out there, you have to welcome new people with open arms and help them learn it, understand it, and appreciate it in a manner that isn't going to be a turnoff. And no, I don't want to be a part of that because I don't understand it. So clearly I can't be a part of it. It's not an exclusion. The more people we include, the more we keep this history around and the more we educate people in the future. I mean, Joe and I are learning every day. I think all of us learn something periodically about it. Why it may be less than the rest of us. He's still learning
every day.
Yeah.
I learn something.
There's always something more to learn that we don't know.
I meet collectors online and learn about them and have conversations with them. People that have 1 or 2 or 3 machines and that maybe have bought and sold other machines, but only have a couple and really concentrate on the music or concentrate on the recordings. And I find that admirable. I wish I could do that, but I'm beyond that.
It's part of the ecosystem. You're going to have people that just focus on the records. You're going to have people like me that focus on the machines and the technology. You're going to have people that I call them finders. All they do is find and sell to us collectors. I find resellers all the time. And then you have restorers like Joe and Tracy that also buy and sell machines. And the ecosystem has many parts. And we even have bottom feeders, the guys that go and they buy these $25 machines and they bring it home because it's within their budget and they'll take months or weeks or days to fix it and make it functional. And it's a great feeling. That's the feedback. Was it the dopamine hit? Is that right? That's how we get our fix.
My thought is preserving the history of it all. I bought a lot of a gentleman's collection who recently passed away the last couple of years. And his wife had this massive collection. He lived in New Jersey. He wasn't one of the more known collectors that passed away, but he was very close to him. And he has a massive collection in his little house in New Jersey where he collected, I mentioned it to you, Wyatt, he collected train whistles and bells, fire whistles and bells. And I don't know how the house didn't collapse upon itself. He had these things that took 5 people to bring into the house, the big, massive bells from the top of a diesel engine. And he had a good friend that was a very big collector in New Jersey, and we all know who I'm talking about, he'll go unmentioned. And he would buy and trade things with him. So I went to the house, and I missed on a lot of good stuff, but I bought a lot of good stuff too. And there's still horns and cranes and things she has. I bought boxes of cylinders from her, blue ones, Amberola, I don't want to say Amberola, as well. And my production's all off because my mouth is all messed up, so I apologize. Black wax, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, and 3 gems, 5 standards, 2 clip, 4 clip.
We need to get you into my arena of discovery, which is going into the basements of old mansions and leaky old barns.
I like that.
Smells, where it's humid and there's that light fragrance of black mold in the air, and you have to go in with a mask, and it's dark because the electric was shut off in the 1970s, and just looking for old records and stuff. I went into a basement 3 years ago that was flooded with 4 feet of water. and I was surrounded by rusting machines that were formerly fine, and cabinets are rotting. And I found parts high up on shelves that were long forgotten that I actually needed. But it's the story aspect too, like how I found my first machine, how Joe and Tracy found theirs, how you found your first machine. But there's always the story of the hunt, and that's part of this chatter that we all have with each other. And it's endless. It is truly endless. It's so endless indeed that Joe and Tracy have actually invited me into their home to stay here because we talk so much. So we might as well talk over breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And while we're working on machines, it creates friendships too and connections. That's another great part of the hobby. Because of the internet, hey, I've met you. I met Joe and Tracy over the internet. And we have this little, it's not little anymore, this global family of people. I was just talking to someone that works at a radio museum in Norway that has an Edison and wanted to know how to get it fixed. And because of the internet, we're able to connect more. And I've made dozens of new friends over the past couple of decades, and they are lifelong friends. And that's just another great benefit of being involved with this.
Joe introduced me to Ed Warner, and Ed's worked on all my Edisons. I've carried more machines up and down those damn stairs than I want to admit to.
Ed loves fixing things, and I try to tell him to slow down, but he's so excited that the glisten in his eye when I think I saw you had a Fireside in there.
Another auction house in New Jersey listed a machine, and I could tell by the way they wrote it that they didn't really know what it was. There weren't great pictures, but it wasn't a home, and it looked like a Triumph. And so I said, you know what? If it doesn't go for a lot, I'm going to bid on it. So it came with this big red horn that's now on another machine. I went there and picked it up. Now, I got it at a really good price, and you thought it was a good price too, Joe. Mm-hmm. And worked, but it had some wear on it. Somebody had accidentally opened it up, and the top flipped over onto the floor. And so the only thing that really got damaged, though, was the case. The mechanism was fine. It needed to be cleaned. It may have been by a heater at one time. So, Ed, I'm like, Ed, I'm in no rush. I got plenty of things to listen to. And he went methodically through it. And then, of course, talking to Joe, everything got out of hand. It really should have a different horn on it.
The wood horn, signet horn.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, that signet wood horn is on my Fireside. I could take that out, put it on my Triumph. I bet it would be nice. So then what happened? So now I need another signet horn, which I've already bought, to put on not a wood one, but a black one, to put back on my Fireside because it has that horizontal carriage with a B.
Top mount.
Here we are again with the terminology. Darn it. You're saying standard Fireside and Triumph, and your listeners are like, what the heck are these people talking about?
Probably a standard. Yeah. Maybe I should let you explain because you actually know. And I'm just going to make it up. And
it's just the name terminology for different models. You know, like your gem is your less expensive model, and it was marketed as the gem phonograph.
Excuse me.
And then you have your standard, your Triumph. There's a whole bunch of names. Oh, there's one thing. If anyone wants to learn more about all of this, there are books out there that have been published in the last 40 years. And there are even a few books on the Apple Store if you have an Apple device. And we're no longer out in the wild walking around aimlessly, not knowing what we're looking at. There's a reference book for nearly every machine that's out there. Yeah, the Zonophones.
I was just going to ask that question.
Yeah,
tell me what it is.
They're in books. One of my favorite books is called The Talking Machine, A Complete Compendium. And you can Google that. I think Schiffer Books publishes it. If you only want to buy one book, it's going to cover most of the machines. It's an excellent introduction. And a lot of the younger collectors that I talk to, they're asking me questions. I'm like, stop, pump the brakes, big stuff. You need to buy a book and sit down and read and learn because you have all this enthusiasm. I can hear it in your voice. You really are interested and turned on by these things. Now it's time to get educated. And that's another aspect of it. We haven't even talked about the books and the ephemera and everything else and how specialized all this is. But yeah, so that's just your model designations. We talk about it so casually because the four of us know what these are. But when we use those weird words, it's just the models that we're talking about, the different ones.
And realize that the prices on some of the more common machines, Edison, especially the standards, the homes, they've pretty much lowered a great deal, even in the past year.
Oh, yeah, in the past 20 years, because more of them are out in the wild to be found. There was a machine called an Opera, which is an Edison Opera. 20 years ago, that was a $10,000 to $12,000 machine because people would be in the hobby for 50 years. They'd never see one. But now you can get an Opera for $4,500, $5,500 or less if you're really fortunate. I've had a few customers buy them in an antique store for $200 because the dealer just didn't know, because the antique dealer didn't have the books. They didn't have the education. Anyone that I talk to that's new at this, I say the first thing, the most powerful thing you can do is buy the books, start reading casually, educate yourself. So when you're out there, Steve, you'll be able to, I know you're going to go into an antique shop and you're like, that's an Edison Fireside with a signet horn, a swan's neck horn. And you'll gain an idea of what the value should be. And I don't collect on value. Some people do. Some people like, how much is that worth? How much is that worth? But for me, it doesn't matter. If it's affordable, that's good. What's not an investment, stocks, and what are the other things? Annuities, those are investments. But for me, the investment is in my mental health and my sanity, which is another program entirely, the mental health, the DSM of phonographs, we can call it. For people like me that I live alone for the most part, they keep me company. And I'm never in a quiet room because there's always sound. And gosh, this is such a big subject. No wonder so many books have been written about it. But okay, yeah, look for the DSM of phonographs. It'll be out in 2026. I have to collaborate with a few psychiatrists and psychologists.
So anyway, so that Triumph is going to become, with all Ed's hard work,
we saw
going to be something special.
It sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it's almost done.
I bought the reproducer from you. I don't know which one it was. H I got, because I have a whole handful of C's, but I had the H, and of course Ed wanted it, so he kept saying, "Can I trade the H and the C for my K?" And I finally said, "Okay."
So you have a K now?
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
Why did I do it? I
don't know why he did that, but a K is more convenient.
He just flip it over. In his mind, I think, he thought that I wouldn't swap them out. And he may be correct. I may just leave whatever's in there because
And why doesn't it play?
Yeah. Okay. So it's like my gem that has the 4-minute, 2-minute thing on there. I never know which way the gearing's supposed to go thing. But he was trying to make it easier on me in his mind. So I said, okay, I'm happy that he works so hard on them and he does great work. I'm trying to learn more about other things. I mean, I can be a little impulsive when I purchase things. I don't know if Joe might have witnessed some of that even when I was at his house.
Well, you know what? That's what you call excitement. You're in the front part of it.
That one and that one.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think you'll find we're 4 years into it now, which is nothing compared to some others. 4 years, certainly compared to some of the other collectors, is just scratching the surface. But our tastes have already changed quite significantly in the 4 years. And I still, though, like, even if I have a couple of the same model, they sound different. They play different. They look different. One might be a lighter oak. One might be a darker oak. But they're all snowflakes. Yeah. They're all a little bit different.
Yeah, you definitely change your taste in machines. In the beginning, we were pretty shoot at the hip, we saw it, we bought it thing as well. And then the more you learn, the more you appreciate different ones, the more you go for the look or the sound. Everybody's taste is going to change a little bit in the collection. Ours definitely has, and we've sold machines that we probably didn't think we would sell when we first started. And we have some machines that we just don't want to sell that wouldn't be something that somebody else would keep. For example, my favorite is a French model. Some call it a Pathé, some call it a Pâté, depending on who you talk to. But that is my favorite machine in the house. But it's not going to be everybody's favorite. The other thing for new listeners and people looking to get into the hobby, don't be afraid to ask online, even if you might get somebody that might be a little snarky or short-sighted. That's okay. There's going to be people out there like that. But if you have a question about a machine that you want to buy, I highly recommend you post and ask before purchasing, because there are a lot of fakes out there. They'll call them Frankenphones or Crapaphones, or there's different terminology that are not originals and were made in the 60s, 70s, 80s, whenever, still being made. Yeah. That if you're new, you wouldn't know necessarily because you would have no way of knowing. There are a few telltale signs, like where the horn connects is a very sharp point. That's usually a telltale sign. And then the reproducer, if it looks like it's got Christmas trees on it, for the most part, that is not going to be a realistic or original phonograph, or at least the reproducer, if nothing else, is fake. So don't be afraid to ask. Give yourself the extra 10, 20 minutes for somebody to respond, because they do respond quickly online. You don't necessarily have to say where you are because you don't want someone coming in and buying it, but get a couple of opinions and feedback before you jump in. And people are out there willing to help you and guide you in the right direction to get you into the collection and into the hobby.
And online, I think it's fair to say, and certainly something my dad used to say, if it's too good to be true, it usually is. That happens a lot online. It happens on Facebook. It happens on Facebook Marketplace. Yes. Have I gotten things off of Facebook Marketplace? Yes, but I went to their houses or went to their offices and bought them. I bought a standard banner green oak. I'm just doing it again, Wyatt. For $100. A doctor in Long Island. He goes, it's in my office. I said, I'll be right there. And I drove over and the thing worked perfectly. I'd never done a thing to it. It did come with a reproduction horn.
My first cylinder machine was in a wood shop, and it was in that wood shop since 1900. And they used it. And then when it was obsolete, they put it in a corner. And when the guy brought it to my house, it had about a 1/4 inch of sawdust on it because it was literally put away and forgotten. And it was a new thing, learning curve. Here we are. I had to learn how to fix it. And there we go again with my dopamine hit. As soon as I heard it play, it was a great feeling. Good stuff.
Amazing, right? It's amazing how, they are complicated machines, but they're incredibly basic all at the same time. And and they're simplistic principles. That's pretty much Edison's strength of all things is his ability to make simplistic things that change the world, even though he was a thief. But we'll go on that another time.
We were just talking about that today. That seems to be the word amongst the young people now. I'm on TikTok and I focus a lot on Edison stuff, and I have these young kids. They say, oh, he stole that. And I'll be like, he didn't really steal it. He just made it marketable and functional. He commercialized things. Yeah.
He stole the movie from that famous French director.
Oh, Gaumont. I don't know the guy's name.
He stole that, put Edison Productions under it, and released it in America and made a fortune. But beyond that, who cares?
Yeah.
Listen, he was an egomaniac. He was a cheat. By the way, my friend's father used to work for him.
Yeah.
He passed away. He probably died at 85 in 1978 or 9. And he worked for Edison as like a page when he was a young boy I don't know if it was the factory or his house or whatever. And he said he was the most demanding human being he ever met in his life. He used to say he gave people a tremendous amount of freedom and demanded constant success.
Yeah.
Not necessarily success, but innovation is probably a better word.
He demanded innovation. There was a story I told Joe today while walking around the historic site that he would hire people out of other departments As an example, he might take someone out of the accounting department and put them in engineering. Why are you sending me to the engineering department? Because all the engineers, when I told them what I wanted done, they said it couldn't be done. You won't tell me that it can't be done. So it was just another way of thinking. He was a thinker. And here's one more example. They were looking for new sounds, new types of music. And this is a true story. They recorded music backwards onto disc records. And then they played them. And they were looking for new beats and new things in music. I don't know if he felt that we've come to the end of our musical evolution, but that was an interesting experiment, playing music backwards, because he had the technology to do so. And they did a lot of that. Back then, they tried a lot of things. They would try something 10,000 times, 10,000 failures. And eventually, they would get it right.
You know the story about hip-hop, how it started in the Bronx. So these guys started in their basement. They would have like little parties. And they wanted to have great beats. And they heard these albums from this German band called Kraftwerk. I don't know if you know who they are.
No.
They played electronic music that had these electronic beats to it. And they heard these beats and they used the records on their machines and hand manipulated them to change the beats, but they loved the beats of Kraftwerk.
Mm-hmm.
So this significant electronic German band becomes one of the founding movements in hip hop being created in the Bronx, in somebody's basement, basically, these basement parties. And there are 3 original or 4 original guys that, if you look up, they're founders of rap and hip hop, all come from these Kraftwerk albums as the background of the beats. They're out there. People hear, it's like every artist, right? You talk to Van Gogh, people wondered why he painted that way. He used to say, I see, this is what I see. Artists see and hear and influence things in a different way than the rest of us.
That's right.
And that's what, look at Musk.
Actually, it has nothing to do with his politics. I don't know. I think very quick and very slow at the same time. I think that he has such great self-interest that he's pushing upon the population. And he doesn't think outside of his own grandiose goals and what he wants to achieve. Yeah, he's done great things. I like Starlink, but at the same time, not everyone can afford a $80,000 to $140,000 electric car. And all those electric cars are powered by coal. So there are multiple books written about his quirks and his personality. But it takes, we talk a lot about what some people call pseudoscience, and a lot of talk about Victor Schauberger, Nikola Tesla, Charles Proteus Steinmetz, Edison, and great advances always come from the fringe of a subject, of the subject matter. It never comes from the center of studying. And I'm quirky. We're all a little quirky, but sometimes that's what it takes. And with Musk, that's what it takes. He's a quirky guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he does that same thing, like you said about Edison. He takes people, if he doesn't, I want you to think out of the box. And if he doesn't, he gets rid of him. He hires somebody else. He brings people in.
Yeah.
He'll bring anyone. He doesn't care. You want to think out of the box? I want you to think of something no one's thought of before. Apply things differently. Look at it differently. I think that he is very into that. And so was Edison. And so was all these guys that were like that.
Yeah.
Certainly Tesla was like that.
Oh, yeah. And eventually, I know someday I'm going to walk around the block 3 times before going into a building, and I'll gain an affinity for collecting pigeons. I know it's going to happen. But yeah, that's what it takes.
We covered a lot of ground tonight, I think.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
And I hope we gave everyone a little bit of overview. Sunday we'll all be I know both of you have tables at a phonograph show in Wayne, New Jersey. It's the PAL, right?
It's at the PAL, which is the Police Athletic League. It's One Pal Drive in Wayne, New Jersey. It's the Mechanical Music Extravaganza. Anything old technology, music related, record related, it'll be there. There's a ginormous community of people that collect these and fix them, and it's our society.
And you will see the myriads of other things, paraphernalia, that people collect.
Record duster.
Oh, they don't have a special name like everything else. People have massive collections of those things.
Yep.
People have massive collections of needle tins.
Yeah.
There are so many things that people collect in this, or signs or ads. I have a bunch. I just bought 3 more. I don't
The
know.
Nipper dog, all kinds of.
Nipper.
Yep.
Nipper.
There's one lady, her name is Joan Rolfs. She actually her and her husband, Robin, wrote the book on antique phonograph toys.
Right.
Toy phonographs and talking dolls. Actually, your listeners may not know this, but the first commercial application of the phonograph was the talking doll from Edison. It only existed for a very short period of time. It was a commercial failure, but it was the first commercially available talking machine.
And it is the creepiest looking thing I've ever seen in my life.
Amen.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Ed has one. Did you ever see it? It's in the living room.
Oh, he showed it to me. I don't.
It's in the living room.
Belongs in a closet.
Yeah.
Now it's in the attic.
Yeah. Halloween comes around. Put that thing away.
So you can imagine how much we dislike them if Edison collectors like us, who have all kinds of things from Edison, can't stand them.
You might want to edit that part out if Ed hears this.
Yeah.
Well,
Doll collectors would like them.
Yeah. Whenever I'm in an antique shop, I always pick up the dolls and I look if they have metal bodies on them, because I recognize the face of an Edison doll, the porcelain head. And there's actually a French company called, what is it? Lioret. Lioret was a watch and clock maker, a horologist. And they made a talking doll called a bébé jumeau. And the bébé jumeau would play a little celluloid record. And it was more of a commercial success than the Edison talking doll. But still, see, and you just when you think about it, about 5-6 years ago, I worked on a talking oil can for the Standard Motor Company. It was probably from the 1930s or 1940s. You push a button on the top and it played a little vinyl record inside of it. And it was an advertisement for Standard Oil. And there are phonographs and everything. There's a Nissan. Nissan came out with a car in the early 1980s, the Nissan Stanza. The Maxima. It had a mechanical phonograph in it. When your door was open, it would notify you with a voice. And it wasn't off of a microchip, it was off of a record. Yeah. Or what's the thing that we all had when we were real young, where you turn the little arrow to an animal and it's like the dog goes or the cow goes, move. I forget what those are called.
Pull the string.
Yeah. And it would talk. Phonographs were in many different things that didn't play music. Yeah. It's a cool hobby. Talking dolls are an entire subset. Yeah. Oh, one little, you got me thinking, Steve, another little bit of Edison trivia for all the haters out there of Edison. Every time you answer your phone and you say hello, guess who invented that word? Edison, because Alexander Graham Bell, if we went with his method of answering the phone, it would be ahoy, oi. Ahoy, oi. And I don't know what Edison's reasoning was between hello. I'm not making this up. A lot, and people are like, I wonder, how did Edison come up with hello? Some people think it's like, oi, hell no, it was hello. Maybe that's how it came about, but he's credited. Maybe it's an urban legend. I don't know. But hello is credited to Edison.
And the first thing ever recorded was?
The first thing ever
Mary
commercially
had a little lamb.
Oh, yeah, that's 1877. Mr. Crucy made the first tinfoil phonograph to Edison specifications, and it worked for the first try. It worked, and he just recited Mary Had a Little Lamb into it. and was I own a little piece of glass from the original Menlo Park laboratory window, because the building just was falling apart and there was detritus everywhere. But I hold this piece of glass is only like an inch by an inch and a half. And I hold that piece of glass in my hand and I look at it and think, Mary had a little lamb. And the applause and the cheering and the excitement that happened in the Menlo Park laboratory, this piece of glass was there and it vibrated with the excitement. And when they got the light bulb to work for more than several minutes, that piece of glass was there. And it just sets my imagination off in wild tangents, just imagining how it was back then. Gosh, I have a nail from Edison's childhood home in Port Huron. Huh?
You took one today?
No, I got it at the museum in Port Huron, where he worked as I think it was a telegraph operator.
They sold nails?
You could buy them in the gift store. His family lived in Port Huron for a short time. And what else is in my collection? I have some lick and stick return address labels from his youngest son, Theodore, who also had a laboratory in West Orange, New Jersey, called Calibron. But it's in my little inventor drawer. I have all these little things. But yeah, imagination and respect. And as you say, we're preserving history, the cultural instrument that is the phonograph.
Really changed the world. He did let it sit for a while before he really concentrated on it. I know he was creating this stupid thing called the light bulb, but
Columbia that dragged him back into it, I believe, correct?
Don't know, because I didn't spend enough time reading the books, the important books.
Yeah, I think he saw other people
came into
using it, other people, whether it was Columbia or not, and he resented since he invented it and jumped back then.
I'm thinking it was around 1880, 1888, when we had an explosion of applied creativity in the talking machine world. And Edison's first commercial phonographs for commerce were actually used for office dictation. And they weren't really intended to be used for entertainment. But some people were, because you could record your voice. Some people started recording music with them and playing the music back. And he realized we could make some money with these things. There were several people at the time all vying to be top dogs. So yeah, you had cylinder records, disc records. But the dictation machine was, I think, one of the earliest uses for these phonographs. And there was another company in Connecticut called Columbia, and they had dictation machines too. They were just for office dictation, and then people started using them for music. It's funny how that all happened.
Anything else, guys? We'll leave it there for now.
All from the Fringe. Yeah.
This is a
good program. Thank you for inviting us, Steve.
Pleasure. I would like, hopefully, that we could do some video maybe in the future, and hopefully maybe we can get guests on people who want to show us their collection. And we would talk about
Steve,
it and see it. So hopefully this is the first of many. These are going to be like side episodes on my regular podcast, because I already have everything working and it's already out there. I'm in 28 countries and 276 cities around the world.
That is amazing.
People, listeners, I don't know who these people are, and I don't know why the hell they're listening to me. But
there must be something about you they just love.
We appreciate your show.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Well, that concludes our interview with Wyatt, Joe, and Tracy. We're going to try to make this a supplemental podcast, obviously on audio and video from time to time. So if you're interested, you will get these supplementals. But our regular podcast will be out there, and we'll be doing our regular interviews and conversations on many different topics. So for now, thank you all for listening. I look forward to your feedback, and hopefully you will hear me and see me very soon.